everyone, and welcome to another video from Checkmate Tutors, designed to assist you on your English for Academic Purposes or EAP course. In today's lesson we are going to discuss the defend essay. These essays also commonly go by different names, including argumentative essays, persuasive essays and problem and solution essays. However, whatever these essays are called, it is highly likely that on any EAP or many university courses, you'll have to write an essay with very similar elements to those that will be discussed today. So it is hoped that this video will be helpful to both you on your EAP course and when at university. What is a defend essay? A defend essay is an essay that provides the writer with a statement that they have to respond to. Generally speaking, the statement, which also forms the title, is very one-sided and is written as a declarative sentence, i.e. it doesn't consider arguments to the contrary or other opinions on the topic. A defend essay requires the writer to take up a position on this topic, known as a stance, and builds an argument around this stance that consistently defends their position. The stance is provided in the supporting sentence of their introduction, and it is a form of thesis statement. A visual metaphor for this could be a boxer both attacking his opponent and defending himself from attack. For example, a boxer maintains his guard and attacks with accurate punches, seeking out weak points in the opponent's defence. These are like the argument paragraphs of their essay. These arguments are strong and designed to undermine the weak points of the argument to the contrary or opposing viewpoint. Then, as the other boxer tries to counter these attacks, the boxer on defence moves around these attacks and counters them with further punches. These counter-attacks are like the counter-arguments in a defend essay. They anticipate the likely counter-argument of the opposition. They deflect this by identifying weaknesses in it and then strike back by fully stating what these weaknesses are. Hopefully, if this sequence has been followed several times throughout the essay, the conclusion will be the knockout blow that finally convinces the reader that the argument presented, in spite of counter-arguments, is convincing, like a convincing win over a boxer. How do I know if I need to write a defend essay? All defend essays have titles that provide statements rather than questions. These are often called position statements because they provide a position on a particular subject that can be refuted or supported. For example, people that adopt a vegan lifestyle are more unhealthy and have shorter lifespans than their non-vegan counterparts. Or, it is the rise of the smartphone and not cheap computers such as the one laptop per child initiative that has enabled the rural poor in African countries to gain access to traditional banking products. Sometimes a question is tagged onto the end of each statement, usually, how far do you agree with this statement? Or, to what extent do you agree with this statement? As it is asking the writer how far they agree with this statement, the best essay type to write in response to such a question is the defend essay. As such questions are asking the writer to take a position or stance and defend this position and attack or undermine the positions of other people on the same topic. Now, before continuing with this lesson, it is recommended that you watch the following videos in the EAP series: How to Create, Structure and Link Essay Paragraphs and the Berger Method of Essay Writing EAP version. How to write an introduction, including thesis statement, and the CREE method of essay writing, as from this point on it will be assumed that you have an understanding of the concepts discussed in these lessons, as these will be made reference to throughout the video. With this considered, it is assumed you know that all essays have four main parts: a title, introduction, main body paragraphs, and a conclusion. You should also know that each of these components consist of particular paragraphs, and that these paragraphs contain particular ingredients that make them serve a particular purpose. At their most basic level, all paragraphs should contain a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and a concluding or linking sentence. And specifically, within the main body of EAP or university science-based essays, the CREE format is the best way to construct paragraphs that form the main body or argument section of your essay. For those of you that need a recap, CREE stands for claim, reason, evidence, and evaluation. You should also know that your introduction and conclusion paragraphs will be slightly different to your main body paragraphs, but more on that later. Before proceeding any further, whilst in this lesson it will be discussed how to plan a defend essay, it needs to be made absolutely clear that there are several processes that students must engage in before attempting to write or plan any essay, and these are as follows. Stage 1. Identification of questions that the writer thinks that they can respond to effectively. In this stage, 2 questions need to be asked. Am I interested in the topic of the question I could potentially answer? And 2, what is my opinion of the position statement in the question? Stage 2, the initial research or shallow research. At this point, you have found a title that you're interested in and you have identified your opinion of the position statement in the question. Now you have to take the initial steps to establish whether there is any academic writing on your chosen subject. There should be, as the question given to you would have been created by a university lecturer, and whether your opinion on the position statement is easy to defend. If it becomes clear that there is not any research on your chosen subject, or the majority of the research is at odds with your views, you should consider changing your stance, more on that later, or responding to a different question. Stage 3, the deep research stage. At this point you have established that the title you wish to respond to has lots of academic research around it, and your opinion on the position statement can be easily defended, or you have changed your opinion to one that can. In the process of doing this, you have undertaken lots of research on your topic, making a list of several sources of good quality academic information from sources that are reputable, i.e. you have looked at peer-reviewed journals that are available at or from your university library. Step 4. The planning stage. This point should only be reached once you have completed the 3 previous steps mentioned. Do not try to shortcut this process by getting a title from your lecturer and planning or writing your essay without completing the steps previously mentioned and attending all lectures that you are supposed to on your course and following the steps that your lecturer has given you. If you fail to do this, you are extremely likely to write a poor essay. With this in mind, assuming that you have done all that I've previously mentioned and dedicated the right amount of time to each step, you are now ready to plan your defend essay, and this is what this video lesson is going to be about. At this point, it is important that you download and print or download and type upon the Burger Resource Sheet, EAP version, to help plan your essay. I will be using it on screen and it will be much easier for you to follow what I am saying if you have a copy of this in front of you. At this stage, you can assume that as I am planning my essay, I have gone through the 4 steps that I've previously mentioned, and that therefore I have plenty of useful things to say in my essay. So with that all being said, the first thing I need is a title. The title I have chosen is The Rise of the Smartphone and Not Cheap Computers Such as the One Laptop Per Child initiative that has enabled the rural poor in African countries to gain access to banking products. I have established in step 1 of my pre-planning that I am interested in this question, and I didn't really have an opinion on the position statement, as although interested in this topic, I don't know much about it or have any preconceptions. So I've discovered through my research in stages 2 and 3 that it is more easy to argue that the smartphone was the enabler for the rural poor in African countries to access banking products and not the One Laptop Per Child initiative, and as such this is going to be my stance. Now I need to write my introduction. You will remember that like all paragraphs, an introduction includes a topic sentence, supporting sentences and a linking sentence, but these sentences serve slightly different purposes in the introduction. The topic sentence restates the question but in different words. It often simplifies the title. The supporting sentences will provide the thesis statement or stance. The concluding or linking sentences will justify the stance, demonstrating to the reader how the argument will unfold in support of the writer's stance. And additionally, in defend essays, the counter-arguments will also be briefly discussed in the concluding or linking sentences. So having already decided that I agree with the position statement of the essay title, my introduction plan looks something like this. Despite its noble intentions, the One Laptop Per Child initiative did not achieve market penetration in the developing world, and as such internet connectivity did not become widespread as a result of these machines. Instead, the rise of the smartphone did enable this, and as a result a large population of these countries accessed banking apps. The One Laptop Per Child initiative was born out of lofty, developed world thinking in which constructivism rather than realism was the driving force. This was yet another example of the West deciding without consultation and doing what they assumed was best for the populations of nations they knew little about, whereas the smartphone, which was not developed for the developing world, but micro-banking apps that were as a direct result of smartphone proliferation in these territories, enabled the rural poor of these countries to gain access to banking apps. I will argue that One Laptop Per Child didn't achieve mass developing market penetration. The smartphone with its inbuilt internet connectivity did. One laptop per child was a Western aspiration not useful for children of the developing world. Smartphones, as an evolution of the traditional mobile phone, had real-world uses and therefore worked better in this context. The one laptop per child did not belong to the child in practice and remained at school, languishing in cupboards. My rebutted counter-arguments are as follows. The one laptop per child was a good product that would have enabled online banking access if it was deployed correctly. Not true, the devices were underpowered and not suited to modern internet protocols. It was the government of the respective developing nations that were at fault for not distributing the laptops to children or schools consistently. This is a flimsy argument. Of course, developing nations by their very nature have weak infrastructure and logistics networks. This should have been considered by the programme coordinators. If the computers were built into an educational program, that they could have been used in such a way that would have enabled families to access banking products, etc. This equally is inaccurate, as it was one of the founding principles of the producers of the One Laptop Per Child initiative that the product and its uses would have been based around the theory of constructivism. The points that I have laid out in my introduction should be easy to develop in the respective CREE and counter-argument paragraphs, as each point would have been discovered in the deep research stage of the writing process. So your CREE and counter-argument paragraphs should look something like this. Claim 1. Despite its noble intentions, the One Laptop Per Child initiative did not achieve market penetration in the developing world. Reason, evidence, evaluation. Claim 2. One laptop per child was a Western aspiration not useful for the children of the developing world. Smartphones, as an evolution of the traditional mobile phone, had real-world uses and therefore worked better in this context. Reason, evidence, evaluation. Claim 3. The one laptop per child did not belong to the child in practice and remained at the school languishing in cupboards. Reason, evidence, evaluation. Counter-argument 1. The one laptop per child was a good product that would have enabled online banking access if it was deployed correctly. Evidence, reason for rebuttal. Counter-argument 2. It was the government of the respective developing nations that were at fault for not distributing the laptops to children and schools consistently. Evidence, reason for rebuttal. Counter-argument 3. If the computers were built into an educational program, then they would have been used in such a way that would enable families to access banking products. Evidence, reason for rebuttal. Before moving on to the conclusion, it's important to note that you are not supposed to write your whole essay on 1 or 2 sides of A3 paper with a picture of a burger on it. Firstly, there isn't enough space for you to write a whole essay on it, and secondly, this is meant to be a planning document. So in the gaps that I have left, i.e. the reason, evidence and evaluation sections of the CREE, and in the evidence sections of my counter-argument paragraphs, you aren't supposed to write your own argument. Simply provide notes as to what will be included in your final essay paragraphs. For example, if we look again at the first CREE paragraph, you can see that the claim is as follows. Despite its noble intentions, the one laptop per child initiative did not achieve market penetration in the developing world. Now, your reason, evidence, evaluation might take up several hundred words, but you aren't writing those here. Instead, you might add notes like reason. Explain that the laptops were effectively gifted to the students with no instructions, no support. The students didn't know what to do with them. Evidence. Take note from the charisma machine, the life, death and legacy of one laptop per child. Evaluation. Explain the developing world's ICT literacy was limited, so giving computers to the uninitiated and expecting them to code was like giving a nuclear reactor blueprint to a 12th century monk. Similarly, your rebutted counter-argument plan should also not be fully developed. The one laptop per child was a good product that would have enabled online banking access if it was deployed correctly. Evidence: compare specs of one laptop per child with the specs of a comparable low-end family computer of the time, and demonstrate how the one laptop per child does not meet the minimum requirements for online banking. This fact-based evidence can be compared against the specs marketing blurb touted by the Foundation. Reason for rebuttal: not true. The device was underpowered and not suited to the modern internet protocols. Finally, moving on to the conclusion section of the plan, you simply need to sum up your argument without introducing any new points. Again, this should be a list of points, not a full paragraph. So in my example, this paper has proven that, due to a combination of idealistic vision and non-realistic execution, the one laptop per child failed to put laptops into the hands of children in the developing world in a meaningful way. In any event, that the computers were underpowered and would not have been supported by common banking apps at the time. Smartphones were a natural progression or evolution of the traditional mobile. These already had mass market following, and as traditional mobile sales and manufacturing dwindled, those in the developing world had access to smart devices by default. Whilst these devices weren't built specifically for the developing world, the banking applications that operated on them were. And so that brings us to the end of this lesson. Again, please remember that this video is supposed to act as an overall guide to how to complete a Defend essay plan. It is not a substitute for face-to-face teaching, and the example question and planned response was a hypothetical one. The essay title is fictional, along with the research and arguments made within this plan. However, it should give you a good idea of the expectations for a good essay. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And remember to check out our website, checkmatetutors.co.uk, for more educational resources and lessons. Bye for now.